All right, 1 second here. All right, 1 second here. 1 second here. All right, well, we're one holding by Pirke Avos, ethics of our fathers, Pirke Avos, ethics of our fathers. We're in chapter 2, Mishna 15, part 20. Again, one holding by Pirke Avos, ethics of our fathers, chapter 2, Mishna 15, part 20. Guaranteed there'll be part 21, 22, 23, right, 24 as we work our way through. And mentioned last week, we didn't quite finish, but we'll probably finish it up today. And again, we said there are 3 things. Each one said 3 things. Rabbi Eliezer says, let your fellow's honor be dear to you as your own. Do not anger easily, right? We're speaking about not getting angry easily, right? So we mentioned last week what says Morva Rebbe, Arav Agon, Ramosh Sternbuch should be well. And he says that even when a person has to protest, and we spoke about that, and the person has to be angry, the person has to place fear in somebody, again, to make sure that no breaches of Torah, no breaches of Torah and mitzvahs. He said, even so, shouldn't really get angry, right? Shouldn't be anger that, you're going to pay the price from. In other words, that you're bursting inside. There's a breach in Torah, right? Which makes sense. A person would in general, would get angry, right? Makes sense. Totally makes sense. Right. So he said further also, he brings down the Gemara in Shabbos. Anyone can look it up if you want to look it up. The Gemara over there says, in Shabbos 105b, someone breaks vessels out of anger, it's like they're performing idolatry, right? Meaning that has control over you. Totally has control over you. And to the extent it's going to hamper your ability to keep Torah mitzvahs, to allow the hearts to have control over the minds, right? These are I would say pretty potent words. Why? Very simple. So he says, again, let's analyze here. The Gemara says somebody breaks vessels out of anger, means you're not in control. Means you're ripping things. You're hitting walls. Right? Never a good thing to do. Right? You're hitting walls. You're breaking things. You're ripping things to shreds. You lost control. Essentially, you lose control. someone, so maybe it says, Gemara brings down, someone who's so out of control, it's like you perform idolatry. Now, very interesting statement. Right? Here we're saying it's going to hamper your ability to keep Torah mitzvahs. Right? You lose control. Now, what's the obvious question? What's the obvious question? Obvious question is, what's the comparison to idolatry? Even Paro himself and others like him did not believe these idols could do anything. Even though in the time, the Rambam says, beginning the laws of idolatry, the Rambam says that in the time, in the generation of Enosh, people made the mistake, many people made the mistake that these things had power. Right? Why did they make the mistake? Today, it's like a crazy thing. You're going to think, come on, this idol can do anything. You punch him in the nose, you kick him in the head. You kick him like a field goal, you hit him with a wicket. Can't do anything. Right? That's what Abraham says to Terach, his father. Right? After he destroys all the idols, and he puts the stick in the hand of one idol. Terach comes back and says, Abe, what happened over here? So Abraham says, it's a big fight. It's an unbelievable fight. And this idol beat everyone else. He's the only one standing. Right? Terach said, what are you talking about? These things don't have power. They can't do things on their own. So Avram tells his father, so why do you worship them? What's the point of worshiping them if they don't do anything? Father says, wow, Abe, you're pretty smart aleck kid. We're going to take you to Nimrod. What does Nimrod do? Throws him in the fiery furnace. So, Terach really thought these idols could do anything? No. But what was the mistake? Right? What was the mistake of idolatry? Essentially, the mistake of idolatry is the fact that they thought God is so powerful, God is so lofty, God is so busy taking care of black holes, God is so busy taking care of the weather, making sure that the earth does not get too close to the sun or too far away. So what does he do? He's busy with that. And therefore, he's not going to have anything to do with this world. He'll give it over to his lackeys. He'll give it over to other forces. So other forces will do God's bidding. Absolutely, they'll do God's bidding. Make sense? Right? Make sense over here. Why? Because God's too lofty. So you'll ask, okay, if we live in a world of design, which Abraham understood at a very young age, or at the age of 3, the age of 40, he understood there's a world of design. Why would a designer not have any connection to his world? Why would he just disappear? Let other forces take care of that. Someone made a building, made a big building, spent years designing it, perfecting it. Not going to have any connection to what he built. Not going to have any connection to creation. So they made a serious mistake. The mistake based on the fact that God's so lofty, God's all powerful and all that. They didn't deny that. Totally didn't deny that. I mean, we'll get to Pharaoh in a second. But in general, they didn't deny it. So if they didn't deny it, and they believe God is all powerful, and they're saying, well, he's so powerful, he's so busy with other things, why is he going to bother with us? Why is he going to bother with his creation? Right? Even mankind. Why is he going to bother? He'll give it over to someone else. And he'll be busy doing more important things. But they agreed. There's a God. He's in charge. That was a serious flaw. Today's a whole different thing. Right? But back then, it's a serious flaw. Pharaoh himself, says to Moses and Aaron, he says, who's this God? Who's this God I should worship him? Worshipped all kinds of other gods. But he still understood this, right? He still understood this, right? Still understood it. So if he still understood it, still a mistake. Still a serious mistake. That's why God punishes him severely. Because God gave him an opportunity to repent. Gave him a tremendous opportunity to repent. Because he gave him an opportunity to repent, and he does, and he took away his free will. Eventually, he took away his free will. Totally took away his free will. Now, that the Rambam others deal with, he took away his free will. Why can he get punished? Okay, we're not going to go there. Right? But the Rambam discusses the laws of repentance. But that's the ultimate in chutzpah. The ultimate in chutzpah is to say, well, I agree, he's there. Why should I listen to him? But here he didn't say that. Here he's saying, who's this God I should listen to? Why should I listen to him? Yeah, that's a bigger problem. A much bigger problem. But the Gemara here says, make no mistake. The Gemara here is telling me, that's like you're performing idolatry. Now, idolatry is something very specific. Yeah, you're giving something a power it doesn't have. But there are specific things you do to idolatry, to idols. You bow down to them. You sacrifice to them. You give wine libations to them. You take on to say, this is my God. They're pretty specific things. The Gemara here says, someone breaks vessels out of anger. They're not in control. What does control have to do with anything? What does it have to do with idolatry? I get it. It's going to hamper your ability to keep Torah mitzvahs. You're out of control. You don't speak to someone when they're out of control. When someone's angry, you wait till the anger dissipates. You never speak to someone when they're angry. They'll just get more angry. You won't get what you need. You gotta wait for them to calm down, to be normal, quote unquote. Back to normal. Here the Gemara says, if you break these vessels, you break things, you destroy things, whatever it may be, you break them out of anger, and that's like performing idolatry. Because essentially, this is actually, very apropos, right? Because in that time of the year, right? So being in that time of the year, isn't it real? Aren't these people like out of their minds? Be a pagan? Someone contacted me. It was actually pretty funny. More sad than funny, actually. But, someone said, but I'm not really a Christian. They're a Messianic. Yeah. But he said, I don't really believe in Christianity. JC was a Jew. I want to learn more about Judaism. But then you got to give them up. You got to throw them in the garbage. All Christianity is false. Yeah. Very true. It's paganism, this and that. Okay. They're still not willing to give them up. They're like, I'm not going to missionize them. I just want to learn more. I want to learn more what the Torah says. I said, drop the guy in the garbage. Why does it have to be like that? All right? Simple. We hold this idolatry. Yeah. Said Rabbi, I think of the website. I said, go look at this. But I don't believe in Christianity. So why believe in him? Yeah, I was talking to a brick. That was it. That was the end of the conversation. But idolatry is something very specific. So a person's angry. Is that like you're bowing down to an idol? Is that like you're sacrificing to an idol? Most people wouldn't say that. I mean, strict definition of idolatry. That's not what it is. That for sure is not what it is. So what's the connection? What's the connection to say that breaking vessels, destroying things is like performing idolatry? What in the world's the connection? Because idolatry is not rational. Idolatry means your brains are gone. Even though it's not in vogue today, it doesn't matter. Idolatry itself means you're not in control. Because it doesn't make sense. That's exactly why most Christians today know nothing. They keep them stupid. They don't allow them to question. For that reason, they gotta have faith, they gotta do this. But they don't have answers. We understand that. So when a person's angry and they lose control, it's as if they worship idols. Because worshiping idols doesn't make sense. It means your brain is gone. And when a person's angry, their brain is gone. Their rationality is gone. Now, a person may say there are different levels of angry. Okay. Right? Of anger. Maybe. But anger is anger. Person doesn't have to be all, person's aggravated. For whatever reason. So when a person gets aggravated, are they in the right mind in general? No. They're not in the right mind. They're holding somewhere else. Why are they holding somewhere else? They're not thinking. They're not in control. So anyone who's idolatrous today, that's the way we look at it. We look at it like they're out of their minds. They're totally out of their minds. Someone who's angry, aren't they out of their minds? We'll take an experiment. You can try this at home. Someone who gets angry, right? You know someone that's angry, at the time that they're angry, try and rationalize with them. Try and have a normal conversation. Try and convince them why they shouldn't be angry. Try and convince them when they're at the throes of being angry to look at the bigger picture. Look how much you have. Look what God's given to you. Go through a list, a laundry list of things to be thankful for. Guess what? They're not going to listen. Why aren't they going to be listen? Why aren't they going to listen? They're not rational. They're 100% not rational. Someone told me this the other day, right? Very, very, very interesting point. Person was on a speaking tour in the States, different universities. Now speaking about the truth, what's going on, the truth behind, quote unquote, the Arab-Israeli conflict, right? Telling over the truth against all the lies being spread without getting into politics. So there was I think I mentioned this last week, but I'll mention it again. There was an Egyptian professor there. They had a conversation before the person spoke. They had a conversation. And what happened? They had a normal conversation. Regular conversation. Once this person started discussing what's going on in the Middle East, this Egyptian went ballistic. Ballistic. Guys yelling and cursing and shouting and this and that. Before he was an intellectual. Got a PhD, pilot higher and deeper, or Papa has dough. Not a dummy. In a certain way. You talk about something that they can't, it makes them makes their blood curdle. This person told me this Egyptian guy sounded like a raving lunatic. Lunatic! Saying things that make no sense. You say, guy's got a PhD. How can he say things that don't make sense? You see? There are people that have above average intelligence. They can be stupid also. In many ways. Not just this. But what's the point? The point was, there was no rationalizing with this person. Why not? Person was angry, was livid, extremely upset. So this is a topic, you're never going to have a rational conversation with. So that person's angry. You say, but what about this? What about that? How do you answer this? They don't hear it. It goes, because they have a bias. They have an agenda. But they're rip-roaring mad. Like all these people you see in these protests, you can't rationalize with them. They're not interested in hearing what you have to say. I mean, they sound ridiculous. You're committing genocide. You're doing this. Come on. Every other Arab country Jews have been in, Jews have disappeared. Disappeared. Zero. They no longer exist in these countries. Arabs in Israel multiplied exponentially. Right, since 1948. Who's committing genocide? Forget about human shields and this and that. What Israel's trying to do. These are the biggest lies being thrown out there. But people get violent. They're all cooked up based on a lie. Yeah, you can't rationalize with these people. There's nobody home. They're not educatable. They're thugs, essentially. Punks, I would call them thugs. But you can't rationalize with someone that kind of anger. That kind of anger, any type of anger that somebody has, they won't listen unless they calm down. So idolatry in general, isn't that a great level of anger? It's a huge level of anger. Right? So here we're very specific. The Gemara says, someone who breaks vessels out of anger, it's like you perform idolatry. The comparison is that these people won't listen to rational arguments. These people's brains are gone. Essentially, they're gone. So that's what it means. Person gets angry, whatever level, they cannot be rational. They'll never be rational. Make sense? Until they calm down. Once they calm down, then you have the ability to speak to them. But before that, they won't hear anything. You can make the greatest arguments, give examples, parables, all kinds of things. Very good. So what? Person doesn't want to hear it. They're already steeped in so far to what they believe. It's impossible. It's impossible for them to hear. Impossible. So that's one thing. Now it's one thing over here. So the second thing is that when a person's angry, it means you lose control to the extent it's going to hamper your ability. It's going to stop you from keeping Torah mitzvahs. If God would reveal himself in front of you at that second, you'd still be angry. That anger will not dissipate. You won't be able to keep Torah mitzvahs. And you're going to allow the heart to have control over the mind. So there are people out there, they get angry at the drop of a hat. Yeah, they get angry for nothing. Maybe to them, they have a right to get angry, whatever it is. Well, let's say they get angry over little things. What's evil inclination doing? It's taking the heart and controlling the mind. Because in the bigger scheme of things, person's not going to care in general. Why all of a sudden they're getting upset? Why all of a sudden they're going to say, they're going to lose control? Right? What's the answer? They're annoyed. If a person was having a normal day, quote unquote, All things being equal. But they get angry at such a thing? Probably not. Probably not. Right? Why do they get angry? They'd be more in control. Right? If they're more in control, I would say they shouldn't get angry. Why would a person lose it? Why would a person lose it in general? Because this, there are other things going on. Person can lose it because their anger overcomes them because there are other things going on. Let's say a person, doesn't get a lot of sleep. They can act out in certain ways. It's certainly not good. So any little thing will bother them because they're sleep deprived. Happens. I'm not saying it's good, but it happens. You snap much quicker. You're not in control because there are other things going on. Or a person could have had plenty of sleep, but they're going through 20 different things at the same time. It's overload. Total overload. Another thing. You'll say it's not their fault. It's what's, on their plate. Okay. But in the bigger scheme of things, what's going on? Normally something that wouldn't bother a person in general or bother them minimally, if they're going through other things, it'll affect them more. Now, you'll say, it really shouldn't. It's not that important. In the bigger scheme of things, you're right. It's definitely not, it's not in the bigger scheme of things. Okay? But what's the answer? You lose control. Right? Essentially, you lose control over it. So here, the heart has more control over the mind. Because the heart's convincing you of many things. Right? The heart is convincing you to, don't listen, don't give in, whatever. And you're angry. Now, however long that anger lasts, right? It doesn't really matter. But you lose control. When a person loses control, you're not thinking about Torah mitzvah. Right? Someone points out, very true, right? Very true that what? That you forget Torah when you're angry. Yeah? Because you're irrational. And when that happens, affects other parts of your brain. And that Torah goes out. Now, question, how much of your Torah you forget? But see, it just goes to show when you're not in control, you won't remember. It's catch-22. Spend a long time going through things, reviewing, reviewing some more, all this, very good. But then what happens? Person gets angry, it's like a lot of that goes out the window. Why should that be? Because your psyche will tell you it's not important. Your insides will tell you, oh, forget about this. Forget about that. You're too caught up in the moment. So when you're too caught up in the moment, whatever happens, it's like everything doesn't matter. Now, when it comes to Torah, Torah is everything. Torah is the most important thing, is no question. But why should it be that way? Meaning, the person gets angry, and you spend a long time reviewing this, reviewing that. Why should that go out the window? Because when a person gets angry, it's like they're saying nothing else is important. So if it's not important, you'll forget. Known by Chaim Kanievsky, blessed memory, son-in-law of Rav Yosef, a blessed memory. He only remembered things that are important. Torah, he remembered. He reviewed all the time. Street names, food items, other things, they weren't important. They weren't important enough to remember. They didn't remember. If you asked him what was the name of the store on the corner where he lived, he couldn't tell you. Why not? Wasn't important to him. If something's important to you, you remember. And it's something that you have to remember. If it's so important, you write it down. You put it somewhere you won't forget. The Torah is imprinted on our hearts. If Torah is imprinted on our hearts, what happens? That's where it is. That's where it's stored. Right? It's stored there. It's stored in the mind. It's part of your whole psyche. It should be. But what happens? When a person is angry, so they're only going after their hearts, and they're not thinking, so nothing else is important to them, except whatever they're going through. So if it's not important to you, you won't remember. So psychologically, this can happen. Person gets so angry, he forgets even that which was in storage before. Right? Right? So a person will say, how can that happen? It's there. Person saves something somewhere where it should never get erased. Right? Should never get erased. So it's there. So I can tap back into it when I need it. Very good. Very good. I can tap in. Okay. But even if I tap in, if I don't tap in, I won't remember. If I do other things, tapping in won't help me. It'll only help me when I'm back to myself. When a person is back to themselves, they'll remember. God will help them remember. Very good. Right? That'll help them. But the whole psychological thing, it's a huge thing here. Because it'll affect you in a negative way. Majorly in a negative way. So that's the connection. Because once the heart has control, it'll throw out things that the mind will say, this doesn't matter. But you're not saying that. You're not saying that in any way. You still want the Torah to be there. But the heart will say, because of what you're going through, because of what happened, you're saying nothing's important. Nothing's important. Family's not important. Your life is not important. Your health is not important. All these things, not important. So what does that do psychologically? Again, I'm not a psychologist. I'm not playing around on TV. Trying to explain what happens here. So when a person thinks none of these things are important, it also means Torah is not important. It means nothing in front of them is important. So if nothing in front of you is important, what happens? The brain starts to rewind. How this works, can't answer. The brain starts to rewind. It will only put things that, at least at that point, they'll say they're important or whatever. If it's not important, seemingly not important. So there's a different question here. So if that's true, and you lose it, how do you get it back? See, if a person sins, I can understand. Right? Person sins, you could tell me, you get repentance. Repentance brings things back. Right? Brings you back to where you were before. If you do it right. But interesting enough, if this is really true, and your Torah is forgotten, how to get it back? Do I have to relearn it? Do I have to come back to it and then it goes back into my mind? Do I have to say over the words? or does God give it back to me as a gift? Because really, if you say you forgot it, it means it's gone. It's out of your rewiring. It's gone. It's not part of your psyche anymore. So I would say, very simple, what does it mean it's gone forever? Unless you relearn it. If it's something you relearn, very good, you get it back. If it's something you're not going to see for a long time, really, you shouldn't get it back until you see it. But if a person gets angry, you have to do tshuva. God doesn't want you to be angry. We said before, certain times you might have to be, whatever. But again, it can't affect you in that sense. You can hate what people do. You can't hate the person. You can fight against them. You can work hard against them, right? But you don't want it to be personal. You're going against ideology. You don't want it to be personal here. But we would say if a person really repents, when they got angry, when they shouldn't have, very good, then they get it back. But it's just an interesting question. Why should that work? In other words, if you lost it, you lost it. But repentance will bring it back. Because seemingly, there's a fundamental question, and that is, what happens after 120 years, the person dies? One of the things God's going to ask is, did you learn Torah? So God's going to say, okay, let's give him the ultimate test. So he calls out every tractate. Let's see what he learned in this tractate. Let's see what he learned in that tractate. Now, a person's going to say, but what if you didn't review? What if you didn't review enough? How are you going to remember? There's a saving grace. What's the saving grace? The saving grace is that even if a person learns it, they didn't renew it, they didn't review it too well. But once they learned it, it's engraved in the soul. Whether you reviewed it well enough or not, it's there. So one saving grace is that even if you didn't review properly, it's going to be there to testify that at least you learned. Now, you might have not learned it at a high level, whatever, it doesn't matter. But at least you learned it, it'll be there. Right? So I'm not saying a person shouldn't review. For sure, a person has to review. But even if you didn't, the fact that a person said it or thought it in their mind becomes part of their psyche. Once it becomes part of their psyche, it's not forgotten. The soul doesn't forget. Whether you recall it or not, doesn't matter. It's there. You know, I've seen it in action. Remember once, first time I was being tested, actually. Give a class in a certain place. You know, they wanted to see, what I could do. So I gave this class. Now, every time I thought about it in my mind, it came out different. Which a lot of times happens. Yeah. So in the middle, I was going on and on and on. And I said, oh, yeah, it's like this. And I remembered this piece of Talmud and connected to this, to that, something I didn't think of. I wasn't thinking of before. Now, many say, a person gets classes in public, they have a lot of siyata shmaya, right? A lot of heavenly help. Yeah. So I've seen it a number of times. Ideas will come into my head. Certain things will be connected, not necessarily thought about before. And it comes out like this and like this and like this. So here was a Gemara I hadn't thought of in a long time. I hadn't thought of in a while. Why did it come up then? Don't know. I thought of something, my brain thought of, what about this? Why don't you connect it to this, connect it to that, and boom, 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 came out. So even though I probably hadn't learned it in a while, it's there. Right, the idea is how to be able to retrieve it. Okay, that's a different issue. But if you learned it years ago, how do you retrieve what you learned? Right, and that's a whole different thing. Right, but here it's there. It's part of the wiring. 100% is part of the wiring. That's a pretty amazing thing. Right, they're going to say, what if you didn't review? Even if you didn't review. So well, it's there. How do you bring it out? How are you able to use it in different things? Okay, right? That's a whole separate topic. That's a whole separate topic. But what helps over here is the fact that it doesn't go to waste. That it's there. It's part of us. So to say you lost it, philosophically, it's kind of hard. Really, it's kind of hard to understand. Because losing it means it's like it disappeared from my wiring. But did it really disappear? Is it really gone? Right? So on the one hand, I could say it's really gone. I'll never remember it unless I relearn it. Or do you say it's not really gone, but it's going to be really hard to get to it unless you do tshuva, unless you repent? Because once you're wired a certain way, you're wired. That doesn't change. What you do may change. We do good things, that can change things that we've done that were bad, can change the way we think, okay. Right? But everybody knows something they did in their past. Let's say something negative. Whatever that negative thing is. Now, let's say a person worked really, really hard to get rid of it. They did a lot of tshuva, right? A lot of repentance. They did a lot of things to get these things out of their mind. Very good. Does that mean it fully disappeared? Does that mean under any circumstance they would never think about it? Right? What's the answer? Some would say, if you work on it enough, it's like it disappears. Others would say the evil inclination can get you even on that years later. Remember, the evil inclination has a lot of patience. Tremendous amount of patience. Right? So the evil inclination itself can get you to a point where these things come up again when you're vulnerable. You're going to say, I worked so hard. For years, you haven't thought about certain things or whatever it may be. And all of a sudden, now you're under stress. And a lot of stress. Think of someone who quit smoking for years. For years. When they're under a lot of stress, all things seem to be caving in. What's one of the first things they do? They pull out a cigarette. But the desire's been gone for years. Person had the pad, whatever it is, however they got rid of the ability to smoke. Right? Which is a very hard thing because they put nicotine in it. Nicotine is extremely addictive. Yeah. So it's a very hard thing to get really out of your system totally. So let's say a person for years and years and years did that. Very good. Yeah, they got it out of their system. But see, when the chips are down and you feel like everything's caving in, you're not thinking, wow, I worked on this, I worked on that, so, I don't have this desire to smoke. First thing you do is you go back to bad habits. And they can be really bad habits. What happens? I'm not saying it happens all the time, even when the chips are down. But we go back to bad habits. We'll go back to thinking the way we might have maybe 10 years ago, 5 years ago, whatever it is. But you're going to say that should be out of my system. That 100% should be out of my system. But guess what? It's still there. Images we saw from when we were kids are still there. They're archived somewhere. Somewhere they're archived. And they could come up 20 years later. Why? Any number of reasons why. But it doesn't mean it's gone. Doesn't mean it's gone totally. Doesn't mean you made an exorcism and you got rid of it. You cut it out and it's gone. You destroyed it. Totally destroyed it. It's there. Person saw certain images when they were younger. Very good. If they haven't thought about certain things for a long time, what happens? They see something, it reminds them of this or that, and that image comes back. I'm not going to say directly. Sometimes it is, sometimes not. but it's there. It's part of the wiring. Yeah, the wiring does not allow people to forget. See, this is the problem. The problem is the Torah itself says, what's so bad about idolatry? There's a verse that says idolatry sticks to you. And what's the language? Devek. It's medabek. What's the root of the word medabek is devek, dalid beis kuf. What is devek? Modern Hebrew, glue. Devek means to attach. It's like it's attached to you. So idolatry in different forms and impurity sticks to you like glue. Imagine, a person, let's say, I don't know, you're eating pancakes. You put syrup. People like pancakes with syrup, butter, whatever. You put syrup on it. You eat it. Sometimes you touch the syrup, your hands get sticky. You got to go wash off your hand. Not the way to get the sticky done off. But anything that's really, really sticky, it's hard to get off. All the more so, terrible things a person's done sticks to your insides like glue. Doesn't dissipate. It doesn't go away. It's there. Now, doesn't mean it manifests itself today or tomorrow or the next day. Right? But it attaches to you. See, the things that we don't necessarily want to attach to us are still there. And a person still remembers. Yeah? It's like we said by Rav Chaim Kamenetsky, a blessed memory. He only remembered things that were important to him. The other things that weren't important, could care less about. Now, what about things that are not important to us today? That might have been, I don't know, years ago, many years ago. And now it brings up memories and the person recalls it like verbatim, like they saw it the other day. This is incredulous. Right? I mean, it makes a lot of sense. Why? Well, why do I say it's incredulous? Someone hasn't thought about, let's say, I don't know, something they saw on TV, they heard a commercial, whatever it was, 20 years ago, let's say, 10 years ago, 15 years ago. But that thing sticks in their mind. It's still there. You ask me what Rashi said on last week's parasha, you can't remember. Right? That you got to work a lot harder at. The garbage goes in like no tomorrow. You just like good old Uncle Latham, just stuff it in. You just gobble it in. It's there. And it could be something you haven't thought of in years. But then when it's recalled for whatever reason, you remember. I'm not saying it's good. But see, the impurity sticks to you. The impurity sticks to you. The purity you want to attach yourself to, that you got to work hard for. That you got to constantly review. Yeah, it's much harder. So you're going to say, why? Why did God make it that way? Because Torah is something you got to live. Torah is something about all-inclusive. I've heard people say, certain aspects of Torah, let's say learning Hebrew, other things, were really hard. So they say, how do I get through it? What's the way you get through it? I spoke to someone recently. What's the way they got through it? Took a lot of notes. They did a lot of review, and they work like a dog. They worked, as they say in South Africa, like a hund. Right? They work like a hund, like a dog. To review, to go through it. Flashcards, this, whatever it was, whatever it took. That's what they did. Now, some things went in easier. Some things they had to keep going over. Some things they really battled with. Yeah, but they worked and they worked and they worked and they worked. And that's how they got there. Mostly because they had a phenomenal memory. Got nothing to do with being a phenomenal memory. It means that they were all in. In other words, this is the most important thing I'll ever do, so I have to be all in. Everything else doesn't matter. Can't get distracted. Getting distracted, we've spoken about a number of times. Very easy to get distracted. Can't get distracted. Getting distracted is like taking 3 steps backwards. That you never want to do. So over here, you got to work really hard. So the more you review, the more you're going to know it like the back of your hand. The more it's going to be like, second nature. And if you don't review, it's a waste of time, essentially. You're not going to retain it. And Torah is all about, you have to review. The Chofetz Chaim, we mentioned this many times, the Chofetz Chaim in the introduction to the laws of Shabbos. He says, if you do not constantly review the laws of Shabbos, you will transgress. Now, he's not cursing anyone. He's telling you the facts. You don't do it. There are, thousands of laws. You got to know them backwards and forwards. Because if you don't, you will transgress. 100% you'll transgress. That's like anything. If there are a lot of details, it's what will happen. It's not rocket science. But you have to be motivated. You have to want it more than anything else. You know what? There's a lot of things out there that are just hard. They're hard. They're hard to get in your head. They're hard to understand. You're going to say reviewing doesn't help. You have no choice. Anyone coming into Judaism, whether it's a JIT, a Jew in training, or a secular Jew coming back to Judaism, you're going to have to put the pedal to the metal. You got to review. You got to work hard over here. Nothing's given on a platter. For us, I'll say like this. For us to understand Torah, God's giving us a gift. Right? How did Moshe Rabbeinu, reach the, almost the highest level of knowledge that anyone can reach in this world? How is he able to retain what he retained? You can say, wow, it's very bright. Yeah. God gave it to him, the Gemara says, as a gift. He allowed him to remember everything. It's a gift. So I'll say like this, two parts. One, for us to even understand Torah is a gift. God is helping. It has nothing to do with intellect. God is helping us all the way through. Rav Noach Horowitz, it should be well, spiritual mentor of the Yeshiva Torah Or. I heard him once say, if you understand, a certain thing, let's say a Rashi, a Tosfos on the Gemara, and you understand it well, go have a piece of cake. Go have a piece of ice cream. That's this generation. Like you understood it backwards and forwards, what the question was, what the answer was, what he was getting at, why he disagrees with Rashi, different things. Huge thing. Huge thing. Big pat in the back. You take a big pat in the back. That's this generation. This cream puff generation. It's amazing. Doesn't matter if it's translated in the language we understand. And it's given to us so easily in this generation. Regardless, still have to acquire it. You still have to want it more than anything else. King Solomon says, more than rubies, more than diamonds. You got to want it to attain it. But the fact that we can have a connection to it, and we can understand it, even basic things, that's a huge thing. That's a huge thing. I say, why? I put my mind to it, I understand it. Right? It makes sense. Yeah, to a certain extent. But you got to remember, it's godly. There are a lot of concepts that, according to our natural understanding, make no sense. Probably most of the Torah. Right? You take a piece of meat, that's kosher, I can eat it. Take a piece of cheese, kosher, I can eat it. I put milk and cheese together and I cook it, Torah prohibition. Why? Torah says you're not allowed to cook a calf in its mother's milk. Very good. You're not allowed to cook it, you're not allowed to eat it, you're not allowed to get benefit from it. Okay. What's the reason behind it? The law we don't understand. The Rambam, the Moreh Nevuchim, Guide for the Perplexed, so I give different answers. Why we do it, essentially, it's a chok. It's a law we don't understand. Because rationally speaking, I got kosher meat, I have kosher cheese. Why should God say, I put them together, it's forbidden? Logically. Why should that be forbidden? Good question. Torah doesn't tell me. There are many things the Torah doesn't say. Why we do things. Still have to try and understand it. No question. Some things are easier to understand, some things less easier to understand. Still have to put my best foot forward, try and understand it. Even if it's a law, even if it's called a chok. Right? Even if it's a law we don't understand. But I have to put effort trying to do that. I mean, you have to know when to move on. But, people want instantaneous answers. People don't want to think. People just don't know what the answer is. And some things, okay, it's a one-line answer. Other things are a lot more complex. But see, it's like doing a crossword puzzle or playing Sudoku or any of these things. Person gets stuck, what do? If there's an answer key, you look at it. You don't want to work that hard. You don't want to work around it. You don't want to, we're lazy. Right? There are a lot of things today in the world that made us lazy. Today you got AI. Do a lot for me. Make life so much easier. Give it information, let it write it better than I can write it. Yeah. It's going to make a lot of people lazy. It'll help in other ways, maybe. But essentially, it's like anything else. You get a word processor. Person uses Word or whatever. Automatic spell check. The source. I want to speak more intelligent, not like a 4-year-old or an 8-year-old or whatever. You want to use high-level vocabulary, very good. So you don't have it, put it into the source. Okay, what's a synonym to this word? What is something similar over here? Very good. I remember back in the day, at a dictionary, had a thesaurus. Word processor came out, made it, obsolete. So you're going to say, makes it much easier. Much quicker time. Very good. Right? Saves time. I agree. Does it make you brighter? Doesn't make you brighter. You're putting in less effort. Word and other word processing programs will say, no, don't say it like this, bad syntax. Don't say it like this, double thing, or you spelled it wrong, or it's giving you all the information. Okay, you still have to write it. So you got AI to do that now. But essentially, you still have to work a little bit. I'm old enough to remember, I learned how to type on a typewriter. Typewriters don't exist anymore. And you made a mistake, you had to have a special cartridge put in and get rid of it. Yeah. Most people don't know what a typewriter is, what it even looks like. Most people grew up in word processing, with the keyboard. Okay? You got to work harder. A lot of these innovations don't make you smarter. Makes you sound smarter in certain ways. Makes life easier in many ways. True. We're not going back to the old ways. Fine. Doesn't make you brighter. Right? What's the bottom line for all this? There's a lot of questions here. Well, what's the bottom line? You got to work hard. This is something you got to constantly work hard in. Can't rest on your laurels. You got to work hard. This is a story, very interesting story. Someone who learning wise wasn't going. Hated learning. Right? Hated learning. Meaning learning Gemara. Tells his father, listen, this isn't for me. Let me get a job. Let me get an apprenticeship. So that's what he's doing. And he went to Israel. And there was a contact with someone said, we really want to give one more shot at learning. Meet this rabbi. He's got a great system, of how to learn. And the person basically gave up. Basically gave up. So he said it's going to take, a couple months. So he went. This person that got in contact with this other rabbi, got him in contact with Moshe Shapiro, a blessed memory. He's a Torah giant to the last generation. I mean, he was an expert in, entire Talmud, the morale. I mean, very, very deep. He's there him speak a number of times, like just unbelievable what he knew in Jewish philosophy and, and how deep in this and that. So he told this guy, someone got this guy in to see him. And he told him, he said, I want you to go to this yeshiva. He was young, he was only 17, I think, at the time. And I want you to go to a yeshiva where they're going to learn 2 pages of Talmud a week. Or a day, I think a day or a week. I think it was like a very quick pace. I think it was a day, actually. This guy hadn't, hadn't learned for a while. He's like, what are you kidding? He's like, that's how you're going to see success. You'll see success that way. And before you go through the Talmud, listen to it on cassette. Back in the day, there were cassettes, no MP3s, no CDs, right? Anyone who remembers. He said, listen to a cassette all the way through and then go through it again and then learn it and whatever. This guy thought he was out of his mind. This guy could barely read. Certainly couldn't learn on his own. Yeah, no question. So Moshe Shapiro told him, this is what you have to do. And he was still going to this other rabbi too. He's basically learning how to read. Learning how to read, how to retain information, how to learn the structure of the Gemara. That's basically what he was learning. But he went to this top place. Oh, let me backtrack. One part of the story. He was going to the Mir Yeshivas, right? One of the biggest yeshivas in the world. I think it's the biggest yeshiva in the world in Jerusalem. And this rabbi got into this connection. This other rabbi, Moshe Shapiro, got him to see the Rosh Yeshiva of Nosson Tzvi Finkel, a blessed memory. Nosson Tzvi Finkel suffered tremendously from Parkinson's disease. I mean, he was like flapping all over the place, could barely speak. I mean, it was an unbelievable sight just to see him. Yeah. So he said, I'll get you in. I made an appointment for him, shows up at the door, and his wife, and Nosson Tzvi Finkel's wife said, you can't see him, he's not well. He's not well. So I forget exactly what he said. He said, I have to see Rosh Yeshiva, it's so important, blah, blah, blah. This person sent me. It's like, all right, go in. So he ends up going in. And he sees the head of the yeshiva is basically strapped onto a bed, like flapping all over the place. He's learning with somebody. And he looked at him. And he was just in awe. He was in awe at the Mesiras Nefesh, the self-sacrifice of the head of the Mir Yeshiva. So when he went, ask him about being accepted to the yeshiva, whatever, he was able to write on a piece of paper, his kabel. His kabel means you're accepted. So he went. And then what he did. He started listening, to these tapes, and he went to learn. And he was learning with this other rabbi, getting, structure, whatever. He ended up staying there for 5 years. Went back to America. Got married and came back. For another 5 years, became very distinguished rabbinic scholar. Person had given up. Essentially given up. He didn't give up on life. He said, okay. I'll keep Shabbos, whatever. I'll learn a little bit. I'll be an electrician. I'll train to be an electrician. Nothing wrong with being an electrician. But he saw more potential. He saw much greater potential. So by seeing much greater potential, what happens? He didn't give up. He didn't throw in the towel. He gave it a last shot, and this last shot, what did it do? Made him who he was. Totally made who he was. But what turned things around at that point? What turned things around at that point was he saw self-sacrifice of a person that, is complete with life. He saw suffering. It's unbelievable suffering. But at the end of the day, what happened? Brought him back. That's what self-sacrifice can do. Right? So question. But you got to want it. And someone's going to say, probably a lot of people will say, but it's hard to have that self-sacrifice. You get beaten down in life. You're right. We all get beaten down in life. We all have it hard in many ways. Some more, some less, different things, doesn't matter. But what's the bottom line? What's the bottom line here? Doesn't matter. So that's the bottom line. Getting beaten down in life is not an excuse. It may hurt. It may be painful. People might have said things, done things, this, that, okay. But we have to be able to see. And it's not so easy. Be able to see the light at the end of the tunnel. But we have to be able to see, wow, this looked really bad. It's really good for me. Like the story I told someone got a traffic ticket. It's going to cost them $750, $1,000 that they didn't have. They ended up coming out with $6,000. Someone helped them. Whatever, the whole story said before. Everyone agreed. Person got the traffic ticket, had no idea how they're going to pay it. And they got taken care of. Plus, if you would ask that person, you think that would have happened, in a million years? They would have said no. But what happened? So even things that look bad, and there are plenty of things that look bad, and could be bad, the way we see it. And it turns out a total different way, not that we expected. Because that never happened to me. I think people would be surprised. They look into their own life. Yeah, this didn't work out. That didn't work out. Other things didn't work out. What, aren't there things that actually worked out, even if you didn't think the way it was going to happen? People have this all the time. Right? I heard someone else just say this. You think you're going to do this, do that, do the other thing. You got to do ishtadlus. You got to put your best foot forward. Very good. But don't think the way you put your best foot forward, that's where salvation is going to come from. Right? So the person said, just the opposite. Just the opposite. You think it's going to happen this way? Probably happen 10 different ways. Yeah, someone asked, let's get to some of these questions. Someone asked, the revision relearning are key, right? If you don't review, how are you ever going to remember? It helps to have a photographic memory, I would agree. Most people don't have photographic memories. They got to work, right? You have to work. The purpose in life, the Ramchal says at the beginning of Derech Hashem in his introduction, as well as in Path of the Just, what's the purpose of life? The Instantaneous Hashem. Get God's benevolence in this world. Attach yourself to God in this world, because God is the making. God wants to give of his goodness. And what is his goodness? He gave us a book. He manufactured himself. It's called the Torah. That's what we have to do. But as we said, the Ramchal brings down as well. And Derech Hashem, we get distracted. The life of distraction. There's a lot of fun distraction out there. Okay. Does he want to get you involved in that? No. That's not what he's interested in. He does not want you to get involved. Right? He doesn't want you to be distracted. But some people will say distraction is fun. Okay. But the more you get distracted, the harder it is. As we said, it's like taking 3 steps backwards. No question. Someone asked, what's my opinion on smoking and drinking regularly? Both are bad. Smoking will definitely kill you. I don't think there's any question about it, right? Nicotine, been proven beyond the shadow of a doubt. The problem with smoking is it's addictive. Right? The Ramosha Feinstein, the blessed memory, the Torah giant, the last generation. In America, it would have been Torah giant anywhere, pretty much. It's got a response to, basically, they say that he didn't know the effects of how bad smoking was. Right? In other words, the person already started, it's one thing. Yeah. But if he would have known the information we have today, he would say it's forbidden to smoke, period. Not allowed to put your life in danger. That's putting your life in danger. Right? Even if you don't smoke on Shabbos, doesn't matter. Put your life in danger. No question. I mean, that's been proven. That's been proven beyond the shadow of a doubt. Now, what about drinking? So, what is drinking going to lead to? Numbs the body, numbs the mind. You can say, no, I drink 1 cup of wine a day. Yeah, so someone said it's good for the heart. Okay, right? Let's say it is. Let's say this person drinks a cup of wine a day. Is there anything wrong with it? No. Anything in excess is forbidden. The Ramban, beginning of Parshas Kedoshim, chapter 19. I'll get there one day in the book of Leviticus. It says, be holy because I'm holy. So what does that mean? Difference of opinion between Rashi and the Ramban. Rashi says, what's forbidden? Forbidden relationships. Right? Immorality. The Ramban says, there are plenty of things that are permissible. You're allowed to eat. You're allowed to drink. Does God want you to be a glutton? Does he want you to be 50 pounds overweight? No. You're allowed to eat, though. But you can't abuse food. Same thing by alcohol. Friday night, Shabbos day, person made kiddush on wine. Okay. That mean I should have 5 cups of wine? No. You want to have a cup of wine? Very good. In between fish and meat, you drink something sharp, right? Whiskey, wine, something, or that piece of bread, soda, something. Yeah, could that lead you to drink more? Could. Is that a good thing? Certainly not. Certainly not. So, anything, if a person drinks normal amounts, very good. Not a problem. Person's drinking just to, a person wants to chill. Person wants to chill every once in a while, have a beer. Have a cup of wine. Couple cups of wine. Anything wrong with it? Really? No. You're doing it every day? You want to drown out your sorrows? Or whatever, you're going through hardship? Yeah, that's a problem. Anything in excess. Right? That's excess. Right? So, if you're using it right, it's not a problem. If you're abusing it, or it's a danger, I think smoking in many ways is much more of a danger than drinking. Yeah. Depends how much you drink. If a person drinks much more than they should on a daily basis, that's a problem. That's for sure a problem. And smoking on a daily basis is also a problem. Right? Even if you're not smoking a pack a day, it's still bad. It still has an effect. Still cut years of your life. The Rebbe told me this is already 50 years ago, 60 years ago, more. Someone, a professor, whatever, is giving this whole lecture on smoking. All the dangers of smoking. This is even before everything came out, how bad it was. Yeah. Like many, many years ago. So 5 minutes after the lecture, he gets up and starts smoking a cigarette. So Rebbe asked him, what are you doing? How in the world do you speak so strongly against smoking? You're lighting up a cigarette. So he answered. He said, listen, I know it's going to cut years down in my life. I know how dangerous it is. I know how bad it is. But it's so enjoyable, I can't give it up. It's totally irrational. Yeah. But it's not an easy thing to give up. Right? They have different ways. Again, there are different ways to do it. But it's hard. So, smoking, even you're only smoking a little bit here, a little bit there, that's bad. Still bad. Can still have a negative effect. Now someone will tell me it's only if you smoke this much, whatever. Can still have a bad effect. Drinking less. Yeah. But again, it depends how much you drink. Would I say someone's allowed to drink? Sure. What do they say? Drink responsibly. Drinking responsibly means I don't have 5-6 drinks a day. You have a drink once in a while, not a problem. You start doing it on a regular basis, that's a problem. I would say it's a problem. Someone wants to know, I should refer to Alan Carr's book, Easy Way to Stop Smoking. Okay. I'm not here to give advice on the stuff. That wasn't the point. I'm just saying it's not an easy thing to do. I made very clear, are there other ways to do it? Yeah. They have to see what ways there are. Years ago they said the patch was good. I don't know if it's still good or not. Right? Certainly not my area of expertise. Right? No question. Someone said it didn't work for them. Okay. Whatever. Let me someone asks why some that say they went off the derech, right? They were religious and not religious anymore. That when they ask parents and teachers questions, they refuse to answer. Oh, that's a good question. There are some people that for them the issue is they had questions when they were younger. And when they were in school, right, when they were in a religious school, they didn't get answers. Because either the teacher didn't have answers, teacher didn't want to go down that path, or they thought the student was a heretic. Now, the issue is that when a person asks a question, and they're asking not to be a heretic, they want an answer. They're asking because they're interested in the topic. Suffering. Why do people suffer? Heretic, can't ask that. So if a person hears that enough times, and they're misunderstood, they don't want to help them or give them information, either because they don't have it or just they don't want to, whatever. They don't want to have a whole class discussion because then other people are going to start thinking the same thing and asking all kinds of questions. What does that lead to? They'll say Torah doesn't have answers. When someone thinks that the Torah doesn't have answers and they're not given answers, what do they think? You suffer because you suffer. There's no rhyme or reason why. And you go through difficulty because of who knows what. They're not happy with that. Is that really going to encourage them to keep Torah mitzvahs? I mean, these are hard topics. Someone will ask, and someone asks, I'll get there. What happened on October 7th? Horrific. Weren't everybody. I mean, except people that wanted to see it happen. Right? Horrific. So where is God? It's like any suffering question. We can give potential answers, why, and this and that. Right? But if someone says you can't ask that question, look at all the former Christians that are listening now or will listen in the future. How'd they get thrown out of the church? Because they didn't have answers. They were called heretics themselves. They got to pray more. You got to do this, got to do that. They didn't have answers. Of course they didn't have answers. Makes sense. Because they don't have answers. Right? So they themselves went off. They went to search other things. And they came to Torah. A lot of them came to Torah based on the fact that, quote unquote, the New Testament is based on what the Old Testament is based on the Torah. So they came to Torah. Yeah. So people will say, if you don't have answers, and I have serious questions, they're legitimate questions. They're not asking to be a heretic. They have an issue. If God is all good, if we understand God is all good, how could October 7th happen? How could there be anti-Semitism being rampant all over the world now? It's a legitimate question, not a heretical question. But if they get blown off, right? If they get blown off and they say you can't ask that question, you're not allowed to ask that question. If they hear that enough from enough teachers or principals or whatever, what's the conclusion they're going to make? The conclusion is you're not allowed to ask questions. The conclusion is there are no answers. So when someone thinks that, even if they're wrong, doesn't matter. If somebody thinks that there are no answers, then why am I doing this? What? I'm going to keep Torah mitzvahs just to suffer as a Jew? Why would I do that? Now, there are plenty of things we don't understand. Doesn't mean there's no reason behind what happens. We're too small to really, in every way to understand what God does. Like Moshe Rabbeinu, Moshe Rabbeinu says, I want to understand your attributes. God says you can only see me. Book of Exodus says you can only see me from the back. No one's going to know me face to face. No one can see my face and live. That's what the Torah says. What does that mean? It means you can't understand what you're going through and what you see right now. You can't understand. You're too close. God's not revealing why. Rabbi just brought down some Rav Aaron Feldman, should be well. Well, Torah Giants of Generations, the head of the yeshiva of Near Yisrael in Baltimore. Right, I went to see my Rebbe, so the old back and forth question, different things they asked him. And one of the questions, was, what do we take out from this? What can we take out from what happened October 7th? The Rebbe said, somebody died, right? A great person died, came back to someone and said, you don't understand. They said, before you die, go up to the heavenly throne. They say we want the Messiah, God's changed things, make things, whatever. When he died, he came back to someone and he said, you don't understand what's going on upstairs. Everything's calculated. Everything's done with precision. We can't understand. This is something we can never understand. And that's why anyone who's ever died who made that claim have to go in front of God, in front of the heavenly court, and plead for the sake of the Jewish people. What they see up there is totally different than what we see here. It's an upside down world, what we see here. We can't understand we can't understand God's mind. We can't pick his brain. Why this, why that? We can't. We don't understand. We're not big enough to understand, not even close. Right? Not even close. Now, some people might not like that answer. Okay. They might not like the answer. You got to give them an answer. Even if you want to say, I'll discuss it with you privately. I don't want to discuss in front of everyone. We got to cover some ground, whatever it is. They have to give them an answer. They have to work with them. Right? Today, I think things are more in the open. So, but if everyone asks like that type of question, they'll never learn anything. So you got to, person teaching there, has to know when to do it, when not to do it. Yeah, they need answers. People need answers. They deserve answers. So I would say, and if the point here is, if they're told all the time, don't ask that, what are you, a heretic? Why are you asking that question? It's a legitimate question. It's a legitimate question. They're not asking to be a heretic. They want an answer. They want to know what the answer is. It's a good question. At the end of the day, if they're blown off, they're not given answers, and they themselves think there are no answers, that's why they go off. That's the potential reason why they go off. That's what I would say. That's what I would say on that. Someone asked, I want to get to this also. Someone asks, sadness. Right? How much sadness is equal to idolatry? That's a good question. Sadness also, if a person gets sad enough, they also lose control. Right? Same thing as being angry. Being angry, you lose control. We mentioned that. We spoke about that for a while, why that's compared to idolatry. So sadness, I would say same thing. You're not in control. You're letting your emotions control. Now, there are things, it depends what level of sadness. There are things a person can be sad at, but they're still in control. Right? I'm not talking about clinical depression. A person could be sad in the sense where, maybe a certain level of depression. Doesn't have to be like they can't function. Right? But, if they're not in control, that's no different in many ways than being, what's the word? than being angry. Right? You're not in control. Now, what level of sadness is that? It depends on the person, depends on the whole situation. Right? I can't answer that in general. Depends what it is. If a person is, let's say, clinically depressed, they're certainly on, high levels of medication, whatever it may be. If they're not functioning, okay. Right? If they're not functioning, that'd be the same thing. And not necessarily their fault. For some people, again, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a psychologist, you can take this with a grain of salt, right? Some people, depression is chemical imbalance. Some people, it's mental illness. Yeah. Could definitely be mental illness. Depends what level. Depends what level it is. Depends what, what they've gone through. There are people going through tremendous trauma. And they just, they can't function. They have to go through years of therapy, medication. I'm not saying always medication. So it's a hard question to answer. Very, very hard question to answer. Right? Because sadness itself, again, depends on the level. The anger doesn't necessarily depend on the level. Because once a person's angry, they lose control. Even if they're a little bit angry, they lose control. Sadness, that might not be the case. A person may be able to get out of it somehow. Right? That's a whole nother discussion I don't say want to get into. Right? It's really not for me to get into. Right? How the person pick them out, pick themselves up, when they're sad. So you have to do the things you enjoy. That's what I would say. Go out, take a walk, eat something you like, read a little book or something that you enjoy. Do something that you enjoy. I'm not gonna say it's gonna totally take you out, of sadness, but sometimes, these things don't help because it's just too hard. They're in a funk. It's not, listen to music. Sometimes music does that. It's gonna fix it 100%, not necessarily. A nice walk might do it, might make you feel better. A good book to read may do that. A nice class might do that. Someone will say a glass of wine might do that, maybe. But then, anytime you're sad, to make you an alcoholic, it's also bad, right? It's got to be some, it's got to be something you're not going to get addicted to, that's bad. That's what I would say. Someone have fast sense of Teves, fast sense later than Shabbos starts. So what? Yeah, what do? You're like this. Let's say here in Israel, make it easy. Fast is over technically 5:04, or some say 5:10 or 5:15, right? But you can't eat before you pray the evening service. Now, for a woman, that doesn't apply. So what if a woman's by herself at that time? Let's say 5:10, she's eating by herself. You break the fast, make kiddush straight away. But a guy can't do that. Why not? A guy can't do that because he's got to pray. And after he prays, then what's the first thing you do? You make kiddush. You sing Shalom Aleichem, you sing Eishes Chayil, then you make kiddush. Right? Then you make kiddush. Just keep in mind, right, the 10th of Tev is the only fast day, minor fast day, can ever come out on a Friday. No other fast day comes out on a Friday. Right? Not Tzom Gedalia, fast of Gedalia, which comes right after Rosh Hashanah. Not the 13th of Adar, right? Fast of Esther, and not 17th of Tammuz. Not 17th of Tammuz. Never comes out on Friday. And the other fast days also, Tisha B'Av and Yom Kippur, they never come out on Friday. Yom Kippur come out Friday night. 9th of Av, fast of 9th of Av. Tisha B'Av can fall on Saturday. Won't come out on Friday. Right? The only fast that comes out on Friday is the 10th of Av, and you're really not allowed to fast on Friday. Right? So why do we fast? Why do we fast on Friday? Because the prophet says on the fast on that day. It's mentioning 10th of Teves, and it's on that day. So when it's on that day, it means whenever it falls, you have to fast. So the 10th of Teves, and it doesn't happen that often. Someone mentioned, I think the last time was like 10 years ago. Right? It's not very common the 10th of Teves comes out on a Friday. It happens. 100% it happens, but it's not very common. So what you do is when it comes to time to say Kiddush, right? So let's say technically speaking, the fast ends 10 past 5, right? Now, right, it's already Shabbos because it's already past sundown, right? So now what do? Now you can make Kiddush, right? That's what you do. You make Kiddush. Right? In other words, the fast is really over, but now it's on Shabbos. Right now, you can't eat till after sundown, right? 20 minutes, 18 minutes after sundown, let's say. You can't start eating. So what do? Say if you're a woman, no one else is making Kiddush for you, you're by yourself, so you make Kiddush right then. Do you have an obligation to pray the evening service? No. You want to, you could, you don't have to. For a guy, it's different. A guy has to pray. So since he has to pray the evening service, after the evening service, then he makes Kiddush. Right? That's how it works. Yeah, someone asked before. Yosef shaves before going to Pharaoh. Okay. Right? That was the question before. Even though a Jew should have a beard, in certain circumstances, should we shave? Should we shave like meeting someone Hashem's placed authority in our? No, I wouldn't. He had himself shaved. It's true. It's against his will. He wouldn't have done it otherwise. They shaved him. Let's make it clear. He didn't shave himself. He got shaved. Right? That's kind of different than him doing it himself. Right? So the question is, if a person meets the head of state, should they shave? No. I would say, if a person normally, let's say, has a beard, and they trim their beards on a regular basis, then I would say, yeah, it's better to go into a head of state with a nice shave. I'm not saying you take the beard off. You trim it, right? Not like mine. It's got to be trimmed. Yeah, got to trim it. But, if you're seeing a head of state, you don't want to look unkempt. You never don't, does that mean I have to shave my beard off? No. Doesn't mean that. Right? Again, you want to ask me personally, should you trim it? Person has a beard, should they trim it to see head of state? Probably better. If it's scraggly or whatever, yeah. Well, what if a person, let's ask a little bit different. Let's say a person doesn't have a full beard. Let's say it just grows in patches. Should you shave it off? No, I wouldn't say that. You're going to keep it because you should have a beard in general, because they know where sidewalks are. So, that's one thing. Even if it doesn't come in fully. Okay. So you make it as neat as possible, let's say. Very good. Do you have an outright obligation? I wouldn't necessarily say that. Outright obligation, no. I would say though, you're seeing the head of state, you shouldn't look like they say in Yiddish, shouldn't look like a schlump. You have to, you should look presentable. You should, are you gonna see a head of a state with a stain on your shirt? I don't think so. Unless you cover it up. Unless you're wearing a sweater or something, okay, it's a different issue. Yeah. But, you're going to get dressed up to see a head of state. Right? That's proper etiquette. So, same thing. If a person had a beard and it's unkempt, unless they never would ever trim it, then you don't have to. But if someone trims it on a normal basis, again, every couple of weeks, every month, whatever, at some point they trim it, again, not like mine, if it would be more trimmed, yeah, it's better, 100%. Obligation? I wouldn't say necessarily an obligation, but I would say that you don't want to look unkempt in front of a head of state. That's what I say. Second question. If Israel knew his descendants should come through 12 tribes, talking about Jacob, right? Did he know deep inside that the son was not really dead? Yeah, we discussed this today. That he didn't know. His brothers didn't know. Now, his brothers thought Joseph's brothers might have thought this could have been Joseph, right? The whole question, they didn't recognize him. Now, the obvious question on that is, we have a relative, you have a brother, right? Person has a brother. I haven't seen him in 20 years. So the last time they saw him, he was a kid. Let's say he was 15, right? Or in Joseph's time, he was 17. Yeah. They hadn't seen him in 13 years. Now, the fact he grew a beard, how did he not recognize? Yeah. How they not recognize? Right? It's a question commentaries ask. They thought, he looked like Joseph, but he spoke to them in a very harsh way. And the fact is, he never spoke that way before. They thought it might be him, but they couldn't imagine it was him. Just the way he spoke. Right? So Yaakov didn't know. Right? Right? So this isn't a contradiction, because you're asking, didn't Jacob know the tribes, the Jewish people are going to come through 12 tribes? You're right. Now, at that point, Joseph wasn't married, right? At that point, when he left and he never saw him, he didn't have kids. True. That's not contradictory. They said, his brother said that he died, right? Or they showed him the coat. He could never be consoled. He was convinced he died, right? Yitzhak, actually, the Medrash says, knew. Yeah, he actually knew Joseph was still alive, but he didn't tell him. Wasn't allowed to tell him. Wasn't allowed to tell Jacob that he was alive. So you're right. It could be, that he knew the Jewish people were going to come through all his kids, right? Maybe he thought, even if Joseph's dead, okay, so they'll come from everybody else. I mean, it's not necessarily a contradiction, right? But if he knew they were going to come from Joseph, then he still had hope he was alive. They didn't show him a body. They just thought, they showed him coat of many colors dipped in blood, which would show that, probably got ripped to shreds, but they didn't bring a body, right? That doesn't, he couldn't be consoled either, right? If you really believed he's dead, yeah, you got a problem, but I don't think it's such a problem, because even if you're going to tell me he didn't know he was dead, or even if he thought he was dead, right? The other 11 tribes, the Jewish people could have come through. But he knew he was going to come from all 12. Yeah, but he couldn't be consoled. And the brothers themselves, they didn't think he was dead either. They just, what did they say in front of Joseph a number of times? We have one that's home with our father, and one we don't know where he is. They didn't know he's dead. But look at all the pain they caused his father. Okay, that's a whole other issue. They didn't realize how inconsolable it would have been. How could they not know that either? How could they not know? They knew Joseph was Jacob's favorite. They knew that. How could they think he was going to be consoled? All right, so Rebbe says, at least in the Hebrew parsha that they gave over, he said that's why you can't learn these things. You can't learn them like stories. 100% you can't learn them like stories. Because there's so many deep things going on behind the scenes, right? It's why when a person learns Tanakh, you got to learn it from someone who knows, A, has fear of heaven, and B, knows what they're doing. Seemingly there are contradictions between Tanakh and the Torah, but that wasn't even what he was saying. He was just saying a lot of these, quote unquote, a lot of these stories, we look at as face value. It's hard to understand them anyways. Can't look at them as just stories. Right, for sure. I'm not saying you're doing that. I'm just saying in general, right? So yeah, there are a lot of things, a lot of things going over here. That's what I would say. Somebody asks, what do I think situation in Gaza? Do I think what's happening is right? What I think is they have no choice. They have to go in, right? That I think is clear, and how they're going to leave it? What are they going to do? It's a good question. But they stuck their foot in their mouth. And they said, we're going to get Hamas out. So they're killing terrorists left and right, killing a lot of the heads, left and right. It's costing a lot of lives also. Right? So, what are they going to do? How are they going to leave it? It's anybody's guess. Right? It's anybody's guess. They put the Palestinian Authority in charge. They're just as bad as Hamas. They are Hamas. So they're no different. Right? They're definitely, they're definitely no different. I mentioned at the very beginning of this that former general said, like, you can't get, how can you get rid of them? They've indoctrinated all these people, right? They've indoctrinated all these people that are in Gaza, they're all Hamas. They're all Hamas. Not just some of them, they're all Hamas. Yeah. So this person didn't understand what he's saying is exactly what we do with Amalek. Gotta, blot them out. Even though we don't know what Amalek is. Yeah. But they've indoctrinated the world in atheism. That's what Amalek brought to the world, right? There's no such thing as a supernatural. That's how Haman, Mr. Haman himself, got killed. He was pinned down by an angel, the Gemara says, on Esther's bed or couch or whatever it was. Achashverosh says, like, you scoundrel, you're going to take my wife in front of my face? They're two peas in a pod. He didn't want to kill him, right? What is he going to say? He's pinned down by angels? He's going to say he's got no claim because he doesn't believe in supernatural. But see, that's what he brought to the world. So what do we have to do? How do we blot that out? We don't know what Amalek is today. In general, we can say the Nazis, Yamach Shemo V'Zichron, may the names he brought up, may they rot. They're Amalek. You can say Hamas is also, figuratively, okay. But how do you blot out their memory? You blot out their memory through Torah. You blot out their memory by not, by understanding there's God in the world. He runs the world, and we just don't understand how. We don't understand what he does. Right, in general. So, so do I think going in? They haven't gone in, in years because they knew it's going to be a bloodbath. They knew the whole place is booby trap. Yeah. That's why they never went in. Here they have no choice. Here they have no choice. After what happened, they have to go in. No matter how many soldiers get killed, they have to get in. They have to try and remove as many people as possible, make sure this never happens again. Is that a situation we want to be in? No. They don't have a choice. They really don't have a choice. How it's going to end up, anybody's guess. I mean, they're going to be in there for a long time. They don't want to be occupiers, but they need protection. They can't have something like this ever happen. They need to get rid of them. But, but again, they're like maggots. It's like get rid of one. They're 100 behind them. So you just have to wipe them all out, right? And I said this a long time ago, not popular to say. There's only one way to stop it. There's only one way to stop it. You got to kill every single person. That's what you got to do. You got to flatten the place entirely. Never going to happen, but that's what you have to do. Because they're all in it together. 100%. They're all in it together. And no other country wants them, by the way. No other Arab country wants them. So what are you going to do with them? Yeah. Again. And not a popular thing today to say, but that's the only way to stop it. That is the only way to stop it. They're using human shields as well, but they believe just as much as the people teaching them. They're all the same. They are all the same. People don't understand that. There are moderates among them. There are none. There are no moderates in Israel either. They want Jews dead. That's according to all the charters. That's what they want. They never agreed to a two-state solution. Biden, this idiot's calling back for a two-state solution. They don't want a two-state solution. They rejected it since the founding of the state. So what are you going to do? How are you going to make peace with somebody like that? You can't. There's no way. So you say, live in peace. If you don't live in peace, we'll flatten you. Right? So I use this expression again by saying if this was, an American analogy, if this was Texas and Mexico was doing this type of stuff and shooting rockets in, America would flatten Mexico like a pancake. They'd kill everybody inside or most people inside, flatten it, no more Taco Bell. That's it. No more burritos, no more tacos. It's over. And no one would say a word. Nobody. They have a right. They absolutely have a right. You're being attacked. They say, live in peace or we're going to kill you. You start attacking us, we're going to come in and flatten you. They can't do that. World opinion is too much against them. They can't do it even if they wanted to. So you're stuck. You're stuck in a no-win situation until the Messiah comes. Right? But here they're more stuck. So now they're deep in. And they're trying to eradicate them, but it's cost them a lot of lives. They're calling for a ceasefire. They want all the hostages back. They ain't giving the hostages back. Yeah, that's the only thing they have to argue. Otherwise, they're all going to get killed. They understand that. So, it's a no-win situation. Certainly, a world opinion is no-win situation. So, they're going to be there for a long time. Right? That's what's going to happen. Okay. Judea and Samaria belong to Israel. Yeah, a lot of places belong to Israel. Jordan's part of Israel. Yeah. Lebanon, part of Lebanon, part of Israel. Syria, part of Israel. Be part of greater Israel at some point. Right? Right? In the future, whenever that's going to be. It's all part of Israel. Doesn't matter. They want it all. They want Jerusalem. They want, they want everything. They think everything belongs to them. Right? So we're in a no-win situation here. As much as they try, not to kill civilians, they're still going to get condemned, no matter what they do. Right? And, Biden said it, and Secretary of Defense over there has said it. Many people have said it. You have a right to defend yourself, but make sure you don't kill as many civilians. But what can they do? They're using human shield. What can they do? Anyone say anything to Syria? Right? 600,000 people they killed and gassed. Anyone protest on the streets saying death to Syria? Nobody. Anyone say anything when America went into Iraq? Killed thousands of people, tens of thousands of people. Yeah, innocent civilians killed also. Anyone say anything? Anyone say burn down America? Probably some rogue countries did. Everyone else? No. It's the way they have to defend themselves. What can they do? This is war. Israel is the only nation in the world being held to a double standard. Only one. We said before, Israel itself has been condemned by the UN. We don't necessarily care about the UN. But the UN's condemned Israel more than any other nation combined. And Israel's only 1/1000th or less of the world's population. You want to tell me that you get condemned more than China? Condemned more than Iran? Combined? Not to mention Libya and all these other places that are just fascist places. Israel's held to a totally different standard. That's what it is. Because anyone in their position, they would have gone in there and they would have flattened the whole place. That's what they would have done. They would have asked any questions. Men killed, women killed, children, it doesn't matter. They would have flattened the whole place. And then picked up the pieces afterwards. And nobody would have said a word. Nobody. Except it's Israel. Nobody would go through this. They won't protect their own people. It's mind-boggling. Mind-boggling. In a lot of different ways. No other country would tolerate it. Nobody. We have to be held to a higher standard. That's the reality. That 100% is the reality. We're held to a higher standard. Nobody in their right mind is held to. That's what it is. I mean, rationally, doesn't make sense. If you understand how the Torah works, it makes more sense. Makes a lot more sense. Yeah, but that's the reality. Doesn't everyone agree? In war, there are civilians going to die. Okay, they're doing their best. They keep saying it over and over and over again. They're using human shields. We're doing the best we can. Nobody cares. Nobody cares. It's not shocking. It's definitely not shocking. It's annoying, but it's not shocking. They're held to a different standard. Nobody in the right mind is held to. Nobody. Right? So, my guess is as good as anyone else's. Right? What's going to be? What's going to be in the end? I think a lot more people have to die first. I think it's unfortunate, but that's what's eventually going to happen. Who's going to pick out the pieces, who's going to be there, and who's going to take over afterwards. Israel does not want to be an occupier by any stretch. They do not want to be an occupier. So, who are they going to put in power? Wherever they put in power, there's going to be bad. You put any quote-unquote Palestinian in there, which even though they don't exist, You put any Palestinian in there, Palestinian is Hamas, Hamas is Palestinian. They're all the same. They're all the same. So you got to have a presence there. You got to be there. That's the only way to stop it. That is the only way to stop it. But some people get it. A lot of people don't get it. And the bottom line is they're the biggest lying machines in the world. Right? And everyone's sucking it up. All they have to do is kill one civilian. One civilian. Even if they weren't being used as a human shield. That's it. That's one civilian too many. Which no other nation in the world is held to that. Nobody. Right? It's mind-boggling. It's absolutely mind-boggling. But it's understandable. It's definitely understandable. Well, how it's going to look in the end, they're doing the best they're going to do with Hezbollah also. Hezbollah's got a lot more missiles than Hamas does. A lot more. So they got to deal with that threat, right? And who's the X factor there is Iran. So, yeah, a lot of very interesting, a lot of interesting things, going on. But, in the end, could it be the beginning of the end when the Messiah comes? Could be. Could get a lot worse first. Yeah, it could be. Is it going to be? Nobody knows. Right? Nobody knows. It's like my Rebbe said. Bottom line is that, these things we don't understand. What we see, we don't understand. We do not understand. There are a lot of miracles going on. There's a lot of actos, a lot of closeness, amongst the Jewish people. No question. Because you're in a time of war. Because I heard someone say, the day after the war, there'll be protests against the government because of the judicial system. Day after. Not a week after. I said a week after. Someone I heard say a day after. So we got to get the message. The Messiah, the Messiah will come when there's actus, when there's togetherness, not when we're all split apart. Splitting apart of the Jewish people is a disaster. Right? That's what destroyed the first, certainly the second temple as well. Sinas Chinam, Lashon Hara, right? Unlawful hatred. Speaking of Lashon Hara, one against the other, that destroyed the second temple. And we're still holding there. 2,000 years later, even though we're back in the land of Israel, very good. Right? But that's destroying the Jewish people from within, 100%. And the other thing is we've got to be careful of, right? And as powerful, as the Israeli army, as the IDF, they're not the ones waging the war here. They are physically, but it's not their power here. It's God protected, right? This is the mistake. This is the thing my Rebbe said a number of times. And that is that it's not the power of your hands. And that's heresy, and God hates that. And this is one of the things my Rebbe said right at the very beginning. A lot of heads are going to roll here. It's not going to happen. There'll be investigations well after the war. A lot of people write books, I'm sure. It's like by the 6-Day War. But at the end of the day, he said they got hit very, very hard. Very, very hard. They look pretty stupid, actually. They missed the boat, cost a lot of lives. Because, they didn't think it was going to happen or whatever. Right? Whatever it may be. So Rebbe said the first group had to get hit was their gaiva, was their being conceited. That had to get knocked out of their head to show that they're not in control. And it's so okay, it took them a few days to, start going after them and this and that, but they look pretty bad. They look pretty bad not protecting their own citizens. That, that's it. So the Rebbe says they got hit really hard. They, all the intelligence, whatever, they got hit really, really hard, made it to look really dumb. Right? In other words, their power themselves, they're saying we're the ones in control, we're the ones in power. God's saying, I'm going to nail you. I'm going to show you not in control of nothing. They got hit really hard. Same thing by COVID. Even if people want to say the numbers were exaggerated, one thing for sure, the medical establishment got hit really hard. They had no idea what they were doing. None. None. A lot of people died at the very beginning. They didn't know how to treat them. They died of starvation. Yeah. And they had all these great ideas. You wear masks, social distancing. And in a lot of places that didn't help. Totally didn't help. Yeah. Not only that, the numbers spiked. Yeah. So, yeah, maybe they got their act together. Maybe, who knows? Maybe, the vaccine, it did help. People say it didn't help. Doesn't matter. I'm not into conspiracy theories here, right? Irrelevant. One major thing happened, though. One major thing happened, and that is they looked really dumb. The medical establishment, as great as technology is, as great as the knowledge they have, this thing made them look really dumb. Really, really dumb. So same thing over here. Yeah, with all their intelligence, with all their fighting power and all this, say the strongest army in the Middle East, whatever. If they don't have God behind them, sitting ducks. And this is the reality. Why? If you look at Tanakh, you look at, the kings, the judges, you look through the prophets. Jewish people do the right thing, they go up like this. They do the wrong thing, they go down. It's like a sine curve, up and down, up and down. You follow what God says, everything's good. You don't follow what God says, disaster. We say that every day, second paragraph of the Shema. You do what you're supposed to do, okay. You'll have food, you have water, God will take care of all your needs. You don't do what God says, going to be serious payback. Serious payback. Yeah. That's the way it is. It's not about secular and look what they did, and they had a Buddha there, at this festival, and everyone was, the morality and all these things going on. You're right. That's all true, but that's not the reason it happened. That didn't help by any stretch. But everybody, all great rabbinic authorities said this was already a decree made before. It was the decree made before. This did not help it. But the decree was already written. So we don't know what the reason was. Nobody knows what the reason is. They can say, we should be doing this, you're doing that, you're working on this, okay. But it's not, the question is, who's this falling on? Who's the responsibility? Secular Jews or us? Or ultra-Orthodox Jews? It's us. We got to be better. If we were better, these things wouldn't happen. So the Pirke Avos, Israel said salvation, blessed memory, said by the 6-Day War. And people say, hey, we should be out there fighting and doing other things. Shouldn't be just sitting and learning. Pirke Avos said by the 6-Day War, they had prepared 80,000 graves. 80,000 graves. They were expecting a massacre, huge massacre. Right? How many people died in the end? About 2,700 something. Less than 3,000. What happened to a huge massacre? Because you had people sitting and learning and praying for them. If you don't have that, we're dead. Everybody died. Right? You don't have that divine protection. So you need a standing army. No one disagrees. Everyone agrees you need a standing army. Yeah? You need people to pray for them and learn from them. There's been a lot of miracles here also. How it's going to end up in the end, anybody's guess. Anybody's guess. But we're in it for the long haul. Right? Sometimes it'll be better, sometimes not. But yeah, a lot of people unfortunately are going to die. But, what are you going to do? You got to get rid of them. You have no choice. How have I? This is the beginning. This is the beginning of the Messiah coming. In that process, we just got to survive it. Okay. How have I would lead to that? Will it? I don't know. I'm not a prophet, the son of a prophet. We don't know. We don't know. Is the writing on the wall? Could very well be. Will it happen, practically speaking? Don't know. Yeah, I think I answered all the questions here. Any other questions? All right, so no question. I'm going to stop here. I actually might hit the next part of the Mishna. Next week, I do this every Saturday. 2 o'clock Eastern Time, 9 o'clock Israel time. Anyone has any questions, find me on Facebook at Michael Chaim Kaufman, Beyond Orthodox Conversion in Judaism, orthodoxconversion.com, and Beyond Orthodox Conversion in Judaism on YouTube. There I got videos on Torah portion of the week, even though I'm still a few weeks behind, or Q&As, ethics for our fathers, Controversial issues, you want to send me an email, rabbichaimkaufman@gmail.com, RBBICHAMCOFFMAN @gmail.com. Tomorrow we'll continue with the book of Leviticus chapter 17. That'll be 9 o'clock Eastern time, 4 o'clock Israel time. Otherwise, I'm going to sign out. Wish everyone a good beginning of the day, middle of the day. We're almost ending.